Good. How are you?
Tired. It's been a tough week and it's only Wednesday.
I literally just woke up. So yeah, I'm tired too.
I just got back from a 2-hour commute because I had to take my kids to their camp
Oh,
across town and come back.
2 hours across town?
Yep.
Oh my God, why?
Links to the camp hero.
And that's one way, so my wife does on the way back.
Wow. Why is the traffic so bad? It's just always like that?
Yeah, I mean, like normally our kids like camp is super close to our house, but then the day after all of the other like camps opened their registrations and it's very competitive, they were kind of like, yeah, so by the way, we have to move our camp across town. So yeah, just let us know if you still want to be in it. And we're just like, what are you talking about? You should have told us this yesterday so we could have signed up for another camp. Yeah, it's not great.
Everything for the kids, am I right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, it could
Like,
absolutely
they,
be
they
worse.
they they deserve it all.
They do deserve it all. It could absolutely be worse if you lived in Texas. We don't even need to mention, but some, oof, all our problems are they pale in comparison, I should say.
Yeah, you're right. Just the fact that I can get there is already
Mm,
pretty cool without a car.
yeah, that's true. Do you take the train?
Yeah, I take the streetcar like a tram, and I feed them breakfast on the way. So like we're like I pack a breakfast and we eat it on the bus, the streetcar.
Amazing.
All right. I guess we may as well get started. You guys can see my screen.
Yes.
All right, GM, welcome to the All Hands for July 9th, 2025. Lynx is here, Anna Thinker is here, Dros is here, our Christy is here, Tom is here, and Shelby is here. Nice. All right, so this is our weekly All Team Tactical. We're going to talk about the work that we're doing, eliminate blockers, and prioritize our work items. We do share on social media. Actually, we haven't in a very long time, but we do try to share on social media. So let me know if you don't want that to happen. If you're wondering what we do, it's we help purpose-driven communities use Web3 tooling to generate revenue and engagement. On the Lagmetric side, we had $200 in transaction volume in the last week. That's plus 142, 3 weekly transacting users, 0 new users, and 11 communities deployed. Couple team-wide announcements. Don't forget to put what you shipped when you do something for BCard. So, for instance, Tom, I didn't see any support from you, even though you did do some support work. So go ahead and throw that into the what did you ship, and we can add it into the next week's meeting minutes. Yeah, these kinds of things where we're just doing stuff to provide value for BCard. I said this was the last week I was going to be late, but it's looking like I'm going to be late for every week in July. So I'll be about 10 minutes late, hopefully no more than that for the month of July. And yeah, just FYI. On the standard bounties, just FYI as well, if you're looking for something to do around here, we're always looking for people to design cards, write articles, write emails, and call nonprofits. If any of these kinds of things are interesting to you, let me know. On the milestone perspective, 10 weekly transacting users, we're doing a little bit of support with one of our users. This one's a tough one because it looks like it's something on the front end, so it's really hard to debug. I added some logging and realized I added it in the wrong place, but I still think I could add a couple more bits of logging in the back end. But yeah, it's been back and forth with this user, and so hopefully we can figure it out, but we just need to somehow sync together to figure out how we can do this, and it's been very difficult for me to find some time to do that, so we shall see. On the 10 users a week side, community pages, the next step is there's no progress on this, I don't think, this week. Add the login flow, add multiple pages, add previews, and auto deploy. So yeah, we don't have that kind of stuff yet. The snapshot functionality is also still in progress. Tom, any progress on this?
Same story as summertime slow.
Okay, cool. On the in-app voting and endowment fund, setting up the vote for June IRL events, I did get the last information I needed from the the one host I was waiting for. So right after this meeting, I'll go ahead and put up the vote, and we can start trafficking that on socials as well. 10 high quality communities, working on our own community. So Arcus, any progress on this?
So, sorry, I'm on one screen again. No, I haven't really made significant progress on it.
Okay, cool. Yeah, it seems like it's a summertime slowdown for everyone. Yeah, so I'm definitely feeling it. Tom did get to mint some more Black Flag token. In fact, I had a little bit of a scheme for distributing this Black Flag token a little bit more widely. Maybe we can talk about it a little bit later, but it's going to require a little bit of dev work from us, so we shall see. Honestly, I don't think that our task list has changed much, but I will go ahead and drop into here. Community pages milestone. This is what we're still looking at, getting snapshot voting and login out. We did get the basic website out onto Orbiter, so it's now being hosted in a decentralized way-ish. So not bad, it's out there. We do need to add some more stuff, including the deploy and login flow and the voting flow. So let's put these up here. Yoink. Oh, that's not what I wanted. Snapshot. Okay, and that's kind of the work for that. I guess like the long-term hope of this Black Flag website. I mean, so there's a long and a midterm hope. Let's start with the long-term hope. The long-term hope is that we have some technology that we can allow any community to kind of use some of these Web3 tools using this Privy login. So you don't need a Web3 wallet to interact with a lot of these like common tools like Snapshot, like POAP, like what's the other thing I was saying on Monday? Darn it, I forgot now. Oh yeah, like the endowment fund. And if we're able to do that kind of thing, then we have like a nice little community stack, which hopefully communities can deploy. And then we can start adding stuff to it, event calendars, merch, that kind of thing. All of this stuff was originally supposed to go in the BCard app, but kind of makes sense for it to be in a more open space where you don't need a BCard to do it. And so we're kind of changing the technology stack on that. Make it easy for us to get tokens to contributors. All that's left on this is historical counting, so I'll leave that up there. Black Flag Endowment Fund, we do have the latest July vote, which I said. It would be really great if we had a proposal up on NounsDAO for this thing. Anyone interested in writing one? No? All right, well, it would...
I can write it, Lex.
Yeah? That would be super
Yeah.
great. Yeah, so basically, I think I have like a proposal that is on a previous one that you can use, and then a bunch of, I think I have a discussion that they can ask. So I will send that to you, the links to those proposal and discussion. Let me just write a note for myself to do that, otherwise I will forget. July 9th, 2025. Write a proposal to NounsDAO. Send Shelby links to old proposals and discussions. Okay. I'll send that over to you, and I will change this to you, Shelby. Amazing. All right, and then finally processing audio from the DSI AMA. How's this going, Dros?
I actually have something to report. I do have some cool summary stuff. I've worked with it in Claude a bit, and then I don't have anything completed yet as far as a visual, but I will have something to share by the end of today. And I do have actually some really nice summary stuff from that AMA that's from Claude that I can actually post before the end of the meeting if you would like me to. So yeah, I actually have gotten a little bit done this week, so it's I'm happy to report that.
Nice. I'm super happy to hear that too. That stuff's gold, actually. So yeah, I would love to see it. If you want to post it, I will definitely listen to it.
Cool.
Or watch it, depending on how it looks.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, yeah.
Cool. Anything
Thanks.
else we're working on that's not here? All right. Let's move in. We'll go into the what did we ship and then the discussion. I'm kind of excited about this discussion. I've been thinking about it a little bit, and so I think it's a good one. But anyways, what did we ship last week? Tom minted 200K Black Flag tokens for contribution distribution. That'll be 250 BCard. Links updated the Black Flag social media tags and removed an unused font. 500 BCard for 30 minutes of work. I withdrew yield from the Black Flag collective pool together pool. It took me about 30 minutes. Does that make sense for those ones? 30 minutes, 500 BCard.
Yeah, I
For me.
also was going to ask about the liquidity removal. I wasn't totally sure on what that was.
This one, the with your yield
Pull
from the
together yield.
so there, if we go on the site, there are two pool together vaults that we set up,
Mhm.
and so you can. They're the official links are over here. Oop, I opened it in a new window, but so this vault here, and so like these are creating yield, and then every month I take that yield out and I make a little snapshot vote, and that yield
Oh,
goes
gotcha,
here.
gotcha, gotcha.
Yeah, so that yield
I
is
was
it goes
confusing.
out to.
I was sorry. I was confusing yield with liquidity. Sorry about that.
Yep, it's the yield that we're using for the events. Yeah.
Perfect. All right.
Okay. Winverse taped and shared last week's all hands. That's for 2K BCard.
Yep.
I created an event page and pull up for Black Flag Meetup in Toronto this Friday. 500 BCard. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Awesome. Arcusy entered week 27 contributor wars into splits. 250 BCard. I signed those 250 BCard. That flow is pretty smooth now, Arcusty. I think it's not bad at all. 30 minutes to send out our weekly rewards. That's great. I think it's
That part works pretty well. So now to work on the other stuff, the backlog and maybe some optimizations. But yeah, I think it works pretty well.
yeah. And then like after that, it's kind of like more about like getting people to contribute in other ways where we can distribute even more. But anyways, we'll get there. I prepped and held our all hands last week. That's 2K BCard. I reached out to event hosts for new events. 500 BCard. Got a couple, and I got a bunch of people who said they're not running events in the summer. I did some back and forth plus a bug fix with a user for 3K BCard. Does that make sense? 3 hours? And I did our monthly rewards report. Sorry, does that make sense? Yeah? Okay.
Yeah.
And then I did our monthly rewards report for May and June, and I posted on socials yesterday. 500 BCard. All right. Did anyone else do anything that's not on here? Like Tom, for instance, you did the support stuff. I think I'm going to ask you to toss it into what did you ship, but I see.
Yeah,
So,
I put the support stuff in. What did you ship? But I guess to be added for this list would be the distribution of the manual distribution for the monthly statements and the rewards token distribution on the B cards.
so rewards token distribution is on here, but the monthly
Sorry,
email.
not minting Black Flag. It was reconciling the B card rewards for bank token and for higher tokens.
Amazing. Yeah, I think that there's like some glow token, USD glow tokens as well. Do we have any of that in the treasury to send out?
I think a couple of bucks are in there, just that I had to put in as a starter thing, but I'd have to take a peek and see the current status.
Okay. Yeah, just let me know if there's stuff missing, and I'll make sure that we get it. Like we can swap some stuff for USD glow in our treasury to make sure it happens and stuff. But
yeah, I think the last time I had seen, we had incurred a liability of something like 50 cents in our first month with USD Glow. And I had to do a couple of updates to get the settling process working there, and it was working good. And then this month, I didn't see if there were any rewards that were accrued. So
yeah,
I think we're okay.
Cool. Sounds good. Can you add those to what did you ship, and we'll put them in for next week?
Yeah, I thought I did that, but I'll definitely do that for sure.
I'm just looking back here now. No, it's not there. I don't think. Did you? Oh no, you did. Yeah. Okay, yeah. Sorry.
I may have typed it and then not sent it, or sent it at like an inappropriate time or something.
No, it was completely my fault. I was just doing this as I was coming in, and I totally missed it underneath. It was like that. It was under the base scan link, and I totally just missed it as a result. Okay, great. Thanks, Tom. Thanks for bringing that up. I wouldn't have wanted to miss that. I mean, we would have reconciled it otherwise, but this is cleaner. BCard. Okay. Awesome. All right. Anything else missing from this list? All right. I like seeing all these little contributions and stuff like that. Like even a 15-minute contribution, like that still gets you BCard, right? Like that still gets you ownership in this organization. And not only that, it helps us move forward in our purpose. So all these little things, they add up to make something quite big. So yeah, I really appreciate all the effort people are putting in. Going down into the discussion, I wanted to talk about this like concept I've been thinking about called the core experience. As you guys, maybe some of you know, I started at a sailing club recently, and I was thinking about like, oh, like it's very interesting that they have like such a active member base, including some people who've been there for 50 years, and people who just continue to stick around, people who are volunteering to keep boats in order and that kind of thing. And I started asking people like, oh yeah, why are you here? Like, what makes you come back and stuff like that. And the answers were varied, but ultimately it started getting me thinking about like a core experience. What is a core experience? Essentially, like if a purpose or a reason is why people come to your community, then the core experience is why they stick around. We've talked about it in terms of like vibes, what's going on, that kind of thing. I'm just calling it core experience because I think it's interesting to narrow in on this point. So for instance, for BCard core experience, our core experience right now is the weekly call, right? Like we don't have that many people who are using the app. We don't have that many people who are developing. I would say that this weekly call is kind of like what it means to be part of this community is kind of like you're around at this weekly call and you kind of understand what's going on because of that. That is, I think, what gets people to come back. And that was very similar for Bankless DAO. There were so many calls that were going on at any given time. You could join one of the guild calls. There was always something that was going on, like a call where there was like, hey, this is the work that we've done. We're pushing things forward. Either that kind of community call or these kind of side calls on the guilds or the projects, right? So that was, I think, like the core experience was really just hopping on a call. And I think like the core experience for crypto Twitter or degens in general is when you make some money. Okay, you buy a token and you sell it and you get like a 2x, a 3x, a 10x. In some, I guess, like really great cases, you get like a 10kx, right? And so that's like the core experience there. I think like the Black Flag Collective, like those in real life events, the core experience right now, I would say like the core experience is meeting up in real life. We are trying to make voting a core experience, but it's not quite there yet. And so like I think meeting up in real life is that core experience. And some people will experience it differently than others, but that's that's kind of what makes people come back, at least from the feedback I've heard, is that people love meeting up with each other and talking about stuff that they wouldn't be able to talk about with other people. Now, at that sailing club, you might think that the core experience is sailing, getting on a boat and going out there. And you might be right for some people, but I would go a little bit further back and say that the core experience is actually feeling like you have like a cottage in the middle of the city. It's not just the sailing, although sailing's definitely part of it. People do paddleboarding, people light fires and just like hang out. People have cookouts, barbecues, and hang out at the clubhouse. It's really people like take care of those boats. So for those people, it's really like what you would do at a cottage, except you're 15 minutes away instead of like 3 hours away. So sailing club core experience is feeling like you're in a cottage in the middle of the city. Sailing, boat maintenance, cookouts, fires, etc. Okay, so the reason why I think core experience, this like concept of a core experience is really important, is that you need, like I think like most communities in general, you need like a healthy membership to be a community. You need people who are coming back week after week. Otherwise, you're not really a community, right? You're just a person. And then there are ways to make that healthy. Some communities will only have the same members and never any new. And that's totally fine by them. For instance, I was asking someone about what is that space game that people have played? EVE Online. Have you heard of EVE Online? Anyways,
I heard of it.
yeah, I had some friends who play, and they said we know there's never going to be new members coming to EVE Online, and we know eventually it's going to die, but we're happy with the people we have right now, and we're having fun, so that's fine. Then there are other communities who thrive on new members, right? And so like professional organizations and stuff like that, volunteer organizations, they really need new members because they have turnover and they need to keep those members, they need to kind of fill those people up. So you can change the dynamics by having like an inflow of users and a turnover of users. And so that core experience is really important because if you're a new user or you're an old user, or if you're a new community member or like one that's been around for a while, you can have similar core experiences, right? Like even whether or not you're new or old or like established, you still come and enjoy that experience together. When you're new, it's especially important because if you don't enjoy that experience, then you're just not going to stick around. You're going to go do something else. Maybe you don't vibe with it, that's fine. But as a community, you want to make sure not only that you're having that core experience that's enjoyable for people, but also that core experience that's enjoyable for the right kind of people, for the people you want to attract. So for instance, I think a lot of DAOs in the past just started giving money away to anyone that just kind of showed up, right? Hey, you come to a call, you attended, here's some money to show you attended. That's cool, except then you are kind of attracting these people who are willing to just sit in meetings, right? And that's fine if that's the kind of people you want to attract. If you want like a large audience, if you want that, like maybe that's a good thing for you, especially if you're like an influencer or something like that. Hey, show up and I'll give you some compensation, or I'll give you something like some incentive to show up. And the core experience is good because anyone who shows up gets X or Y, and you are entertained and you enjoy yourself. So that kind of thing could definitely work if you're an influencer. But if you're a project trying to ship something, then actually having a bunch of people around might not be a good thing because those people expect to be entertained, and maybe talking about work items and stuff is boring. Anyways, all this to say that your core experience, I think, of a community is something that probably happens semi-regularly or regularly. So for instance, this community call happens regularly, but for something like making money on crypto Twitter, it doesn't happen every day necessarily, but sometimes it does, right? And it happens enough to keep people around. And when it stops happening, people leave. Another thing is that it is kind of like how community interacts with each other. Maybe you have a core experience, which is a singular thing, but I think for most communities that's not the case, right? Like even if you're talking about making money on meme coins, that happens for everyone who is part of that meme coin. So you have some sort of like shared experience. It is a shared experience. Yeah, and so and it important to set it up to attract the people you want to stick around. Yeah. Anyways, any thoughts on this topic? I mean, just like all of us have been parts of communities in the past. Arcus, I see that you've unmuted. Did you have something to say on this?
Yeah, well, yeah, I was going to say, because I've been kind of thinking that like with core experience, there's sort of an emotional component to it, and then there's an activity component to it. And I think like it works best like when the emotional component and the activity component are complementary and feed off of each other. Because like in some cases, like maybe you're involved in something just for the emotional aspect of it. In other cases, maybe it's just the activity part of it. But like when you have both, then that's better. And when they're both like in line and complementary to each other, that's like when it works the best. And then there are some cases where like the emotional component to the experience conflicts with the activity part of it. Like in meme coin trading, for example, like if you are doing it but you like lose money, then obviously there's going to be the emotional side of it is going to be a negative factor in that.
Can you think of examples of like where the emotional and activity component do work well?
So I think like just for like because I was thinking when you were talking about the Black Flag Collective thing and the voting stuff. Like I haven't done any of the actual I've done the voting part of it, but I haven't been to an event or anything. But in the voting, you can go in and like look at the pictures of the events and stuff. So there's kind of an emotional component of looking at, these people, look at these people doing these activities or whatever. And, that's interesting. That's like, I didn't know that particularly about a certain person or something. So there's sort of like an emotional component to that, and feeling like you're, in some way participating, even though you're not actually like physically participating in the event.
Yep, absolutely.
I like what you're saying, Richard, and yeah, I can definitely visualize it, and I can see that importance, the connection between the emotional and the activity. It's almost like that emotional is what drives the activity, and the activity is what creates the emotional. So it's almost that flywheel. And one good example would be, for example, a sporting event. You go as a fan, and the outcome of the event drives your emotions in certain ways. Things that happen at the event drive your emotions in certain ways, but also the activity of going and queuing up and even buying the tickets and maybe wearing the merch and chanting and doing the activity evokes the emotional response. And when you add something like voting to an event, it gives people who weren't there and able to participate physically in the actual event, they can participate they can do an action which brings them closer to that emotional response, right? And it brings them closer to that community. And this is why things like voting are super important, especially like, just think about, especially in the bankless DAO days, how many different polls were happening on a continual basis. Like Design Guild was really popular for those because we would do competitions. Now, design competitions, I actually have a thing against those right now because they're extremely difficult to administer and put on and compete in, and the winner is not necessarily always the best choice. But beyond that, the activity got people involved. Vote on this, and you'll be a part of the crew, or go and vote in a snapshot and get a POAP. And that incentivized people to actually take that action. They felt excited because they were getting a POAP sent to their on-chain wallet. Who knows what all those POAPs could be worth, hey? And that's where the speculation comes in. But that's an emotional response. And maybe that's good enough for what people want. Like, just think of card collectors, and all their stash might be worth thousands of dollars, but are they ever going to sell it? Probably not, because it means more to them than the $10,000 would mean to them. So with all this is just to say that, yeah, if we can enable communities to both elicit an action, i.e. voting, and elicit an emotional response via those actions, then I think that's a good win-win right there.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you on that. It's kind of what we're trying to do with, we're trying to do it in a bunch of ways, but that's kind of the intent behind like the whole what did you ship? Okay, you do something, you get tokens into your wallet, and hopefully you get a notification kind of showing you that you got those tokens and congratulations, right? And now you have these tokens that you can now vote with, and potentially that creates other feelings in you as well, right? And so like a lot of these things are around, we talked about some of these like kind of core feelings that we wanted people to feel in the past. Oops. Like it's on here. Let's take a look here. So if we go into our, where is it? I was looking for BCard. I can't even find it. That's not good. Why? There it is. BCard. And then we got into branding our, so we have these kinds of things, but we talked more about when we got into our brand identity. Was it our brand identity? Darn it. It wasn't quite this. We talked about like, oh yeah, it was this. It was the product positioning and messaging. What is our right to exist, and how do we want to make our users feel? Like a community feeling, right? And so like I do think that we want to play with emotions. I do think we want to play with actions. And that feedback loop is really important. Now that feedback loop is also like has been hijacked by a lot of modern by a lot of modern software. If you guys know the hooked model, basically there is a model which kind of gets you addicted to social media that every social media app uses. I think that those models don't work forever, but it is essentially a hijacking of your dopamine to help you feel this kind of thing. And that's kind of the dark side of it. But on the other side of it, for people who feel like they can't do anything or they feel hopeless, having actions that are positive and that make you feel positive is also a way kind of out of that as well. So when we think about these kinds of core experiences, we also want to think about how it can help communities and individuals.
I want to give you a statistic that's relevant, I think. And, they talk about local versus national and global participation. And they say all politics is local and all of that. I have a frightening statistic, and I would imagine if you look at this number across communities, it's probably equally dismal or similarly dismal. And this is voting in not national elections, but very local neighborhood councils. And what neighborhood councils are, and I'm going to bring this up. This is specifically related to Los Angeles. I'll tell this very quick. I'll like 2 minutes. So what neighborhood councils are volunteer advisory groups that bring neighborhood level concerns to the attention of city officials. And so in Los Angeles, these city officials oversee a $14 billion annual budget and represent 4 million people who live in Los Angeles. This year, only 7,490 ballots, 491 ballots, it's a 14% drop. But the big point is it's only, what is the percentage of the turnout here? It is, and they've got it in the 0.3% of voters turned out for things that affect their local neighborhoods directly. And so when we talk about voting,
Do you think that's because they feel their vote doesn't count,
Probably.
or are they not interested in the initiatives, or what? Do they have an insight as to why?
they say what factors played a role. It was partly about not being able to do in-person voting, so they had to do the thing entirely by mail. People had to apply separately for a ballot if they. Anyway, it was very complicated, and so there was friction in being able to vote in it. They didn't have budget for making it easy to vote, and I think people probably weren't aware of what the issues were. And like what you said, they probably felt, since it was a volunteer commission that would then, or a volunteer committee that would then bring issues to elected officials, maybe they felt like that it was a pointless effort. So yeah, you look at all those factors. I mean, that's talking about not just this kind of experimental space of blockchain, but in things that affect people's real lives. They don't even have time or the interest or maybe even the awareness to vote. And so, how do we solve that for things that actually matter in people's lives?
Yeah, it's a really good
And
point.
there's also an incentive to not have people vote, right?
Yes.
Depending on what. So that's a whole other issue, or phrasing the topic in such a way that it, because people don't read the detail, right? They skim for summary, and if the summary is wrong, almost like an AI hallucination, but instead of that, it's a PAC that has designed the advertising and has all the money to present a skewed view of what the proposal actually is. We wonder why people don't vote.
Yep. Yeah, no, so my wife is involved in local politics too. She works for the city, and part of her job more recently is to engage with the public, and she has these exact same concerns, right? Like there are neighborhood groups, and like the counselor, for instance, will optimize like a public consultation so that one group can show up but not another. So, people who bring their kids home and are home by 5, they can come to a 5 o'clock meeting, but people who work until 5, they commute to work, the soonest they can make it is 7. And actually, they don't even want to make it for 7 because they got to go home and make dinner and do all these things before they go to sleep. And so you could have more online consultations and that kind of thing. And that's something that she's trying to do. But then all of a sudden you have these other kinds of concerns around like, oh, is it safe? Is it possible? Are we getting the right people? Right. So it is a huge concern. And that concern you're saying about like, oh, actually there are people who don't want others to vote or they are misleading about it. I mean, I think like you see it all the time when people are doing budget bills, in Canada as well as the States. Like recently, I found out that that they're looking to do like 10 to 20% cuts across the board in just like Canadian government positions, which you may find like whether or not that's good. I think that like when it comes out publicly, it'll probably say stuff like the way that they'll sell it to the public is like, oh, we're going to be more efficient and we're going to do stuff like this and we're going to do stuff like that. But the truth is that they're just asking for 20% cuts. They're not doing an audit of what is more efficient and what is less efficient. The efficient groups are going to get a 20% cut just as much as the groups that are wasting a ton of money, right? And so you can bet that when that comes to a vote, they're going to call it something like, I'm not going to use big beautiful bill because it is definitely a euphemism that comes to mind, right? It's this idea that the people who are in power, they don't want the people who are voting to know what they're actually doing. And I think that is a problem. I think in DAOs we had the opposite problem in that we expected too much of voters, right? Like we were like, hey, you have to read this 20-page proposal. And by the way, there are 6 of them that you have to read this week. That is also an issue too. And I think like when you look at the emotional component that Christy was saying, the emotions involved with both of those is bad, right? Like there's no good feeling that you get from that. There's nothing that makes you want to come back and do it again. And that's why we have declining turnout.
Yeah,
Uh-oh.
that's definitely true.
Okay. Can I hear you, Anna Thinker? Go ahead. Testing.
And
Oops.
to get it is like, am I actually going to get this or am I going to be somebody's exit liquidity? So that really puts a break on it for many, many people. I see this with my brother. He's got money in a Roth IRA and he basically just hodling GameStop, really. And, he has his thesis and I hope it plays out for him, but he kind of dismisses crypto as a scam, which, the only way that I could imagine crypto being a scam or a rug pull is if our encryption was eroded overnight and we all lost all our funds, which potentially, who knows, that could happen if the NSA has all the back doors that they ever needed, or maybe this stuff already exists. Beyond that, who can put trust in what system, right? They're all the systems are equally fucked except gold. Pardon my language. Gold, that's a pretty hard currency that you can stick in your safe and you can sell it anywhere around the world for a reasonable price. But, we put a lot of trust into encryption. Beyond that, beyond encryption going bad, we all fall prey to scams around here. We've probably all been scammed. I've lost money. I lost NFTs. And I didn't report it because I just felt like an idiot going to report a couple of pictures missing off the internet. I'm sure they would have understood, and I probably should have done it for tax purposes. But at the end of the day, it put just like a filter on it for me. It made me see everything slightly differently. Maybe people need to be scammed when they get into this. I don't think they do, but people need a wake-up call. They need to understand how risky it is putting all this information on chain. Don't ever put your passport number on chain. Don't ever put your social security number on chain. Don't ever put any sensitive information on chain because it's on chain and it's always available. Even if it's encrypted, don't ever do it. So let that just be a quick word of warning to everybody regarding safety. But beyond that, we definitely have a long way to go to get more people voting and interested in crypto. Money is the quickest way there. If people were getting paid, they would be flocking to DAOs, but they're not. They're getting paid in NFTs, they're getting paid in recognition. Okay, banger. Yeah, that's my 2 cents.
Nice. Yeah, it's tough, right? And it's true that scams do abound in this space too. The technology, like that trust, like some people are like, voting has been solved. We're just going to use ZK, like zero knowledge technology. And it's just like, you know what? Like people still don't trust that technology. It's going to be like 10 years at least before people start to trust it. People don't even understand what encryption is yet, even though they use it, right? But they trust it enough that they can put their bank information on like a website to buy things. But that took a really long time for people to trust it. And for a while, the technology was super sketchy. I don't know if you remember, like when SSL was kind of like first being integrated into browsers, and on your bank website, it might say, "Hey, you need to upgrade to the latest version of Microsoft Internet Explorer because it has 128-bit encryption, and this one only has 64-bit encryption." Like, these kinds of messages where users just like, "What the hell are you talking about? I don't understand any of that." But eventually, people trusted it enough because it was in use for long enough in some places where you could be like, yeah, okay, it worked for those people, it's going to work for me. And so it's the same thing with crypto technology. The more we use it in the more use cases, in the more visible use cases, eventually people will start to understand it. And the same with zero knowledge. For instance, Drost, if you like, there's a way there's something they call ZKTLS, which is essentially a way for you as a person to validate a bit of information and then send that validation to someone else. So for instance, hey Drost, if you live in LA and there is like a city of LA website which you can log into, which shows that you are a member of a certain postal code, you could zero knowledge encrypt that in your browser and then send it over to your community and say, hey, I am in this
Right. I can prove that I'm in your zip code, but you don't need to know anything else about me.
Exactly. I can prove I'm in your zip code. You don't need to know anything else about me, and therefore I should get one vote.
Yeah, I love the concept of ZK voting, and it's fantastic if it'll work. So, and then making that consumer facing, and then incenting people to do it. Right. You still have that problem that we're talking about is communicating the value, saving people's time, but also getting the key points across. Other things that they should be voting on directly. Should we have representatives? And if we have representatives, how do we know that they're voting in our interest? Blah, 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 blah. Those things still exist. How do we address that even with ZK technology?
Exactly.
It's a fascinating
human problems.
Yep.
So we have to act the way that we want the world to be.
But getting back to Richard Arcusti's point, which I think was a really good jumping off point for all of this, you were really on point today, Richard. I think you're fully caffeinated this morning. No, between the affinity or the use, you phrased it so eloquently. I don't even want to try and paraphrase it right now, but those two elements need to be there in order for people to want to show up consistently, as Links had alluded to. Yeah, this is definitely one worth summarizing and pulling some stuff out from, just personally for me to review. But I think this is a good discussion. So how do we act on that is the question, right?
Yeah. Well, you just mentioned one way of acting on it, right? So like how to take the transcript and turn it into something interesting for yourself and for others, right? So if you found Arcusti's words insightful, you can now act and share them, and then hopefully like you are in sharing it, you feel good sharing it. Hopefully, like when you share it on social, you get positive response, and also you get a positive response because in the what did you ship, you put it in there, and you also get more ownership into this organization. Yeah.
There you go. No, it's good incentive, and no, I just also wanted to compliment Richard on that kind of inspirational jumping off point.
For some reason, the thing that stuck to me is a fully caffeinated Arcusti.
Well, maybe since we're starting the meeting a little bit later, if we start at the quarter hour, maybe everybody has a chance to get their coffee and get it in their bloodstream a little bit. Maybe that's a good idea.
Yeah,
I know I have a challenge getting here at the top of the hour.
I am fully caffeinated.
Perfect. Well, it's the afternoon for you.
Yeah, although I did just have another drink. So I've been drinking my coffee as an Americano with double cream over here. But I felt like double cream was too thick, so I wanted something lighter, like half and half. So I went to single cream, but I'm not convinced with single cream. I don't know. It's different over here. So back to double cream.
So
I just couldn't do any more lattes.
they don't call that a Briticano anymore, or what was it? Someone changed the name of Americano. Oh, it was Mexico. They changed it to Mexicano.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean in Spain we just call it Americano. So yeah, the Mexicanos. Yeah. That's crazy. I have a friend who lives down in Mexico. He is from Bellingham, but he ended up moving down to Mexico and just sort of Airbnb-ing his life away.
Oh
He's
yeah.
been down there for 15 years, I guess. And
Oh
his
wow.
girlfriend is Mexican, and they lived all over Central and South America, and now they live permanently in Mexico. So we were asking him about the recent protests, and apparently he says it's just in the capital, but yeah, it's a real thing. Gentrification.
Yeah, it is for sure. I see we're at times, and I want to respect everyone's time. So I just want to say thanks to everyone who's here. Thanks for participating in the discussion. Of course, this being our core experience, I would love to make this better. So if you guys have any feedback on how we can improve, how we can make things more interesting, how we can make it easier for you to know how to act, how we can make you feel more invested, please let me know, or feel free to start a discussion in the user team chats. But yeah, I just want to thank you guys all for being here. I think like it is because of you that I get to think through some of these things like core experience. So that I really, really appreciate. Thanks a lot.
Amazing. Thank you, Lynx. Good to see everybody.
Thanks to you too.
Joyce, I can hang out for an hour or for 15 minutes if you want to chat,
Sure.
or we can go to
Yeah,
a separate channel.
you don't have a lot of time, so yeah, we could do that if you want. Let's see, we can go over.
Yeah, okay.
We'll close this out. All right, cool.
Yeah. I guess, Lynx, you're going to close this stage, so we'll go to
Yeah.
another channel.
I can still hang out if you guys want. I just wanted to.
Yeah, I'll
leave
stop
it.
the
okay.
recording.
Okay. Yeah.
Of course, some of the good stuff happens after we stop the recording, but maybe I should just let it keep going. Tell me if you want me to stop it. We've technically only had a 45-minute meeting today, but if anyone needs to be elsewhere, that's cool. But no, I'm having a good morning. Yeah, does anybody have anything else on their mind? I thought that was a nice wrap to the meeting. We can make that as a timestamp for the end. What's on your mind, Anna?
What's on my mind? I don't know. What's on everybody else's mind? On my mind, I am doing a lot more media content, a lot more content creation right now. I went to Dublin recently, and I did some video and photos and drone work for a company. And then I had to put together a highlight reel. So I did a 4-minute reel with all the footage combined and the dialogue. They interviewed some of the sales team and the contractors who are building the roof, and they're making these special green roofs. So kind of put a narrative together there, built the whole video, delivered it, put way more hours in than I billed for. But that's fine because they're probably going to buy a bunch more videos off the back of this. So hopefully I'm just going to keep pushing forward with that. And that's mainly what's on my mind. In terms of BCard, this is a core activity for me. What did you call it, Lynx? A core what?
Experience.
Core experience. Yes, this activity is a core experience for me. And I always try and set time aside for it. Last week I had some last minute job on the Wednesday and I wasn't able to join. But yeah, it kind of keeps me involved and lets me sort of take the pulse of the project, which is still going, thanks to mainly Lynx and Tom and Arcusti, who push a lot of the stuff forward. And yeah, I'm excited to see how it's kind of evolving because Lynx, you've been discussing some newer concepts around the app and the ecosystem and how we can get communities involved, and it doesn't all revolve around BCard and payments. It'll be interesting to see if BCard as a debit card even continues in the future. What are your thoughts on that, Lynx?
Yeah, I think like it could continue, but it doesn't make sense in the form that it is right now. So don't get me wrong, it does potentially make sense in the form that it's in for some communities, but not the communities that we have access to. So we could
Mhm.
create access to it could be really useful for like a, let's say, grassroots community that is trying to raise funds and has like a very active membership, right? So, these like strong towns, political action groups, that kind of thing. It could be useful to them, but we'd have to like sell it to them. And honestly, our tech is just like our tech and support is not really there yet to like support those larger communities. So we're kind of in a chicken and egg problem. That being said, like it could work for some of those communities, and I've been poking some of them, but it's not like a sales process that I've been doing, I guess. But if we do these other things first, it allows us to support communities that we could potentially reach, and they can grow into groups that potentially use BCard that we can kind of put up over time. So long story short, I do think that there's potential there. It's hard for us to achieve that potential the way that we are now. We would have to like we have to make some changes to be able to do that properly. And I think that kind of like you always start with yourself, right? And so it's really like some of these things that Arkusi did, for instance, like making rewards more easily like distributable and stuff like that. These are kinds of the things that we need to do to make our own community healthier and more and stronger, which will help us support a stronger B card in the future. It's a long-winded answer to your question, but yeah.
Oh, no, that's a good answer. Yeah, it ultimately is our goal still to lower the barrier between Web3 and non-Web3 users, aka improve the user experience within Web3. Or is it now shifting more towards communities? Is that something that we might look at in our
So
mission?
I think like the mission is still to bridge the gap between Web3 and the real world. And
Mhm.
the way that we're doing it right now is through those communities, because I think that's, we all agree that that's kind of like why we wanted to, what is the point of bridging the gap between Web3 and the real world? Well, one of the big things we could do is help those communities. And if we do that, then it's kind of like we could create that kind of flywheel where it's just like, okay, we are making it easier for these communities to exist. These communities exist and bring more people into the space, which means that like more people need our kinds of tools. Which it's like that's kind of the way we're attacking it. So like all this way to say both, right? Like that's like they're both really entwined. I think. Like if you look at what me and Tom are working on right now, which is essentially this website that you can sign in with your email and accrue tokens and vote and get POAPs and stuff like that. That really is doing both, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That is really doing both. So I had a quick thought while you were going through that. And maybe we're kind of missing the forest for the trees because we want people to interact, but the biggest barrier to that is people's attention, right? We need their attention for them to interact. Voting half the time isn't done. As a matter of fact, I set up Event Horizon AI voting and I've left it running and I haven't checked it in, I don't know, maybe 3 months. And I don't even know what it's doing. That's not a good sign. If you can just set up like a voting stream and who
And
knows,
you don't
maybe I
even know what
died
your own
and
thing is doing, and
yeah,
even give
maybe
yourself
I die
attention
and
for the
6
thing that
months
you
later this
created.
yeah, right. So, these AI projects are helpful in many ways, but there are a lot of flaws inherently that need to be managed with protocol. Now, in our instance, we want to be distributing tokens because ultimately that is, what the Web3 experience is, right? It's people gaining access to tokens, and then those tokens have some sort of utility. You can vote or you can trade them in, and taxable events aside, trading in tokens or redeemables become this thing where I can go out and buy a pair of trousers or pants, if you will, and then I go to another store and I get a discount because I bought those pants. I don't do anything except buy the pants, right? I transact on chain, but then maybe I get notified, maybe I don't. At the next transaction, hey, you bought those. Thanks a lot. Here's a discount, or this is on us, or those sorts of redeemables where you get instant or prolonged benefits by interacting with the ecosystem. There's no voting. You're voting with your purchase, you're voting with your ultimately your attention, yes, but how do we channel that? How do we stream that where you have essentially a rewards ecosystem that's built on chain, and it's all queryable and it's all programmable. Ultimately, I feel like that's what we're trying to build. And the debit card has just kind of been the first step to that, where, we're trying to harness transaction money. Maybe that's viable, maybe that's not. Ultimately, the ultimate goal is to get people transacting on chain, whether they know it or not, and enjoying the benefits of that and enabling communities along the way. So there's a whole other level to this, obviously, with community involvement. And would then have community ambassadors who are reaching out and helping them set up their pages, helping them push forward the community engagement. And the customer on the other end may or may not be a part of that, the community side. They can join if they want to, or there may, every community is going to have their different membership requirements. But yeah, so it's very layered in that concept, but we're not dedicated solely to transactions and voting. It's more about enabling the entire network to sort of, I don't know, maybe I've gone way off the deep end here.
Well,
That was a bit much.
The way that I want to tie it back to what you were saying earlier is that like people are motivated by money, right? Like they're interested by money. And our original thought was like, hey, we can create that like kind of regularly flowing money through BCard. That was a hope, right? And we found through our own tests that it just wasn't enough. And so then we started to work with this endowment fund, and that was really interesting, right? But again, maybe it's not enough, right? And so like I do think that like BCard is like the debit card is one part of that kind of whole infrastructure, and as well the endowment fund could be part of it. Like these revenue driving activities are one part of it, and that there are these other parts of it too, like hey, show up, get a POAP. Hey, here's our event links. Hey, you can vote with these tokens you're getting. It's distributing and it's distributing tokens and using tokens, and it's also like generating excitement and engagement in some ways. And so I'll bring it back and say like the debit card is partially related to like that idea of like, hey, people are motivated by money, right? Like this is one of the ways.
Yeah, definitely. They are motivated by money. I think the main problem is that we can't offer 3% or whatever it is that other cards are offering. And, we could go that route. We could get a subscription card and make people pay $100 for it. But if we had done that originally out of the gate with Bankless HQ, like partnership with Bankless DAO, it probably would have worked. People would have bought it. But that's not the route we chose. We chose the no funding, build a real product that has longevity, and we didn't want to put another Ponzi token out there. That's not what we're here for. Not what we are here for. Yeah, who knows? With the debit card, hopefully it does pay off because we put a lot of work and a lot of time and effort into it. But even if it doesn't pay off, what we have built is this kind of core concept of how Web3 can function better and how communities can utilize Web3 as a way to sort of build engagement within their communities, reward people, manage funds, on ramp and off ramp funding for their projects, and go from there.
Yeah, I absolutely agree that like it's all process, right? And so you can't like I guess like it might be tempting to be like, oh, we wasted our time. But I think like it's hard to get insights without understanding how like it's hard to get insights without understanding without going through the process, right? Like you learn as you're going, and so it's hard to say like, oh, we made a mistake and we shouldn't have done that. We might say like I might not do that again, but I think that it's still something that it was good that we kind of went through it, right?
We don't tend to value or quantify that sunk cost or whatever as an investment, right? Even if the particular thing didn't pan out. I know we're running up against our hour, and I didn't want to interrupt a great conversation, but there's something earlier, and I think it was back on Richard's comments when I was bestowing caffeinated praise upon him. And that is that when I originally joined BCard and I whatever you want to call people who bought the NFT or donated, contributed, and then got the NFT. I mean, it wasn't about the NFT. The only point I wanted to make is, we're talking about, is it about BCard? Is it necessarily about the debit card itself? Is it about something else? And I will tell you just flat out, I didn't join BCard because of the card. To be quite blunt, it was because it was one of two remaining projects, to my mind, that still existed after Bankless DAO blew up. And you guys were some familiar faces, Lynx and F Thinker. Tom, I didn't know you as well, but I knew you were around and kind of an under the radar kind of guy. Richard, I'd seen your Pooley there, Pooley MFer, I mean. And I'm like, yeah, these are people I know. And Winverse, being in there, I'm like, okay, cool. I'll come out and hang in here. And then I decided to go and donate just so I had a reason for being, even if I didn't lift a finger to do anything. That was quite honestly why I joined in the first place. That's not why I'm here now, but I mean, that's still part of the reason, and a big part of it. But that's not why I joined the project in the first place. I just thought you should know that.
Thanks for that. Appreciate it. I do think that we want to make it useful or interesting, or we want people to have a good feeling like being involved. Even all those people who donated, just because they donated towards a debit card, and we're going to continue to run that debit card. It costs us like almost nothing to run, right? Like it's very cheap. But the hope is in the future that it's more than just BCard. It's this B Foundation, and I've had like this idea to make the B Foundation website and stuff like that, but I just haven't had a chance to do it yet.
Yeah, I love the expanded thinking, and to my mind, it's a better evolution, personally, frankly, because you and I have talked about my usage of debit cards and my approach to them and stuff, and it doesn't fit necessarily fit my model of how I operate my financial life. But depending on how we mold the product, it could be more useful to me. But beyond that, why I'm involved now, it's still you guys. I mean, I love you guys, you know that. And I like building something together, even if it's slow, and it gives me a purpose to learning some tools, which I like using the tools, whether it ends up in anything useful or not. I mean, I do want to have it something useful, but it gives me a purpose to work on those things. But more importantly, and not more importantly, but why am I still here, and why, one of the things I keep talking about OMF, even if I haven't put energy into it lately, just because of some other personal things in my life. But what really draws me now too is it's frankly exciting to me that we have been able to get 10 communities basically, and they're pretty exciting ones that if we can get some traction there and figure out what resonates with people, I think it really has some potential for some legs. Not sure exactly where that'll go, but OMF in particular, I think it really speaks to the desire for people to have more direct control over their own lives, particularly their health. And especially now with us not being able to trust what were considered formerly independent agencies to even give us accurate information, who can you trust now? And so I think this is even more important. It's becoming even more important, and I think it's becoming even more relevant to people that are not in crypto. I'm talking to people right now. They're saying, I don't know what to believe coming out of the CDC or the NIH because, they're changing their recommendations on vaccines. We know it all has to do with the changing of the guard. And so who do you trust? That's a whole other set of issues. But this is becoming now, it's a broader thing. And it's not about the card. It's not about just a handful of folks that I want to hang out with. There's something more here that's super important. Anyway,
I agree that there's something more. Society's changing, and we want to help push it in the direction, nudge it in the direction that we hope it should be going into. And I think it's like when you say who can you trust, I think it's all about those bottom-up networks. So you'll notice on the Black Flag site, I changed the tagline to we are a user-run in real-life social network of blockchain enthusiasts. It's still not great. I spent like 5 minutes doing that. But the original message was like a little bit too, let's say, militant. Right. And so like this idea that like, who do you trust? The people that you know. Right. And yes, I've met you, Drost. So like, I know I've met you, and so like I trust you a little bit more. You know, I haven't met Arkusti in person, but I've met you like face to face on a video chat, and so you're a real person. I know you. I've worked with you, right? Even people who I haven't met.
I met Arkusti in person, so I'll be your proxy there.
Yeah, there you go, right? And so Anna Thinker knows Arkusti's a real person.
Hey guys, I gotta sign off now. Sorry to cut short. I do have to go.
All right. Hey, thanks
This
for
has
joining
been a
us,
great
Anna.
chat. We should continue next week or sooner.
Yeah, good
Yeah.
hearing from you.
Yeah.
So have fun with that drone photography.
Thank you. All right,
Yeah.
bye guys.
I actually got to go too, but yeah, like
Yeah, we
that
should probably
idea,
wrap it up.
that idea around Black Flag was really like, hey, who can you trust? The people you've met, right? And like when you can't trust anyone on social media, you can still trust people that you can like see and talk with in real life. And so it's kind of like for me, it's kind of like a network. Like the hope would be it's just like a network of people who are like we exist outside of social media. Does that make sense?
Right. Yes,
Yeah.
100%.
Anyways, I gotta
Cool
go.
beans. Yep.
Yeah.
Have a
Talk to
great day, everyone. Thanks for the conversation. Cheers, all. I'll since Winverse wasn't here, I'll go ahead and do the thing. I'll get it done.
Amazing. Thanks a lot. Talk to you later.
Cheers, all. Bye.
But,
Bye.
but